It's great to be here, and I'm going to talk to you today about our support for entrepreneurs at Aston University. So I'm going to be talking through the different ways in which we support both students but also SMEs.
Just a second, please.
Okay, so just to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, I just want to first of all give you
Just
a
a
context.
second, we're having an audio issue. I'm not getting the audio from her. Just 1 second.
Out of the way. Let's continue. So what I'm going to talk about today is first of all a bit of the context of enterprise and entrepreneurship education in the UK. And then I'm going on to giving you an overview of the activities we have at Aston, and then going in a bit more detail about a little bit about what we do about enterprise and entrepreneurship in the curriculum, then our student and graduate incubator, and then the growth programs that we have for SMEs in the region. So, enterprise and entrepreneurship education in the UK. Why I wanted to give you this overview first of all is because we have some common understandings of what we mean by these terms in the UK. And I'm not sure that they always translate into different countries. So I just wanted to show you what we are understanding by these terms. So here's a quote for you from a report that was done for the government on enterprise education and entrepreneurship education, where the government wanted a thorough review of all opportunities for enterprise and entrepreneurship education from primary school right to higher education. And Lord Young in this report says that enterprise means more than just the ability to become an entrepreneur. It is that quality that gives an individual a positive outlook, an ability to see the glass is half full rather than half empty, and is a valuable attribute for the whole of life. So this is one of the things that's really emphasised in the UK, that enterprise is something that we're distinguishing as slightly separate from entrepreneurship, and it's these qualities, these entrepreneurial qualities that you can apply in any context of life. So whether you're working and starting a business, or if you're working in a large multinational, and also within your personal life too. So another aspect of the UK is that we have a quality body, so it's called the Quality Assurance Authority, and it assures the quality of our universities. So they go around and they inspect our universities every 5 years to see the quality of the programs, but they also provide guidelines as to what might we expect to see in a particular type of program. And in 2012, they produced the first guidelines for enterprise and entrepreneurship programs at universities. And this is quite quite a revolutionary document in entrepreneurship and enterprise education, because it's the first of its kind in the world. And it's a quite thorough document, it's not too long, it's about 30 pages, but it sets out what is enterprise and entrepreneurship education, what do we want students to learn from it, and how can we achieve these outcomes. So it's something that then universities in the UK use to plan their courses, their programs for students in particular. So this is really a document that's focused on students, and in particular undergraduate students. Currently there are going to be new guidelines released in this year, actually later, perhaps I think it's this week. So they're updating them. They're just adding, I think, a few more case studies to make them interesting, but it's something that it can be really interesting for you to look at as guidance. And in this document, they also have this distinction between the enterprise education and the entrepreneurship education. So enterprise education, they say, is this process of equipping students with an enhanced capacity to generate ideas and the skills to make them happen. So they're really focusing on these skills that you can develop in students in terms of creativity, developing their own ideas, problem solving, communication, but then also taking practical action. So the ideas don't just remain on the page, but you act on them. Entrepreneurship education is based on enterprise education. The only difference is it's about the context of setting up a business and or growing a business or organisation. So it could be a social enterprise, it could be a charity. So it's what we have here is this is more specific to the organisational context, whereas these are general skills that can be applied across the board. They also break down the different steps of enterprise education. So what are the different stages that students can go through before we reach to entrepreneurial effectiveness, where they're able to go ahead and implement their ideas on their own without so much support. So the first stage is really raising awareness, this enterprise awareness stage. And this is telling students about entrepreneurship and enterprise and getting them to think about what does enterprise mean for them. And this is quite important because many students don't actually consider enterprising their careers, how they might need to be enterprising, and they don't consider the option of starting a business. So it's just raising awareness that these options are out there. The next stage is developing this entrepreneurial mindset. So you start participating more in activities to develop those skills that we saw earlier. So it's more interactive. Then we're getting on to developing the capability. So again, this is more experiential, more sort of project-based, where students start creating their own projects and acting on them. And finally, we get to this entrepreneurial effectiveness, where it's student-driven. So the students, they might be starting their own business, they might be starting their project, and the teaching side of it's really just left to mentoring. So this stage, they're able to progress their own roles and take their own approaches. And here is just a bunch of sort of different graduate outcomes. So these are what we expect from these different stages of students to develop. So we see as the beginning one, it's just to understand what enterprise is. When we get to the mindset, it covers a whole range of different aspects in terms of your values, your identity, what are your ambitions, your motivations, your goals, thinking about how do you organise yourself to achieve these, also dealing with important issues in enterprise entrepreneurship, which is tolerance of uncertainty and the ability to take risks and deal with failure and learn from failure. So these are aspects that are useful across the board, not just for people who are starting businesses. Then the capability is about the sort of skills in terms of creativity, how do you recognise opportunities, how do you then decide what is a good opportunity to pursue, and then pursuing it, implementing those ideas, learning things about leadership, management, reflecting on what you've done so that you can learn from your experiences. And also, importantly, interpersonal skills and communication skills. And getting, at the end, the outcomes, what we want for entrepreneurial effectiveness, is that students are going to be self-driven and independent, that they're really the ones that are behind these projects. They can create a new venture from going for entrepreneurship education, but also, because this is quite a broad concept of entrepreneurship, it's not just entrepreneurship in terms of business creation, we also want to think about social values being created and thinking about sustainability in terms of environmental impact. Another aspect that the guidelines do is show how can these different learning outcomes, what we want students to learn, be achieved. And they emphasise, and what's often the case in the UK, is that enterprise and entrepreneurship education is not just within the curriculum, it's not just within your programmes of study, but there are extracurricular activities outside the curriculum that students can choose to participate in. So they're not part of their official programme, they're not going to be marked on it for their degree, but they're extra opportunities that they have. So, For example, what we're going to see, some of the things we have at Aston, is that we have first of all we're a specialist startup unit. We also have support for the careers service, so this is a separate service where students can go to for help in terms of what they want to do in their career. And they also can guide them to entrepreneurship is an option, and here's some support services we have. We also have student societies. So in the UK, universities, each university will have a students' union which is run by the students and looks to ensure that the students are getting what they need from the university, but also it looks to life outside of their courses and on social events and so forth. And there are student societies. So part of this is that you get student societies which are focused on entrepreneurship. Like yesterday I was talking about Nactus. We have various other societies that I'll show you about. Then you have lots of competitions and so forth which are outside the curriculum. You can get community-based projects, which again Nactus does, this kind of stuff I was talking about yesterday. And then our incubation. So all of these things are extra things which are outside the curriculum. But of course, we want to ensure that there's opportunities within the curriculum as well, so that it's not just students who are opting into these activities, but so that we ensure that all students will have that ability to have enterprise education. At Aston, we're not yet there where it's embedded across the curriculum, but this is our aim for the next, I think for 2020, that we will have these opportunities across the board, and this is something that we're working to implement. So just to link it back into our mission, so Pavel at the beginning introduced Aston and emphasised that Aston's really a university which is about linking in with industry and the professions and training people for working with the professions and industry. And our goal in the business school, the mission here, you can see it's really focused around enterprise and entrepreneurship. It says our goal is to enhance enterprise and enterprises. We develop individuals to perform better within enterprises and the professions, and to create successfully new ventures. We support business leaders in enhancing their organisation's performance and growth. We advise policymakers on ways to improve society and the economy. Our research creates new knowledge that furthers these aspirations. So here it shows really that what we want to do at Aston is about improving enterprise, improving businesses, and that all of our research links back into this as well. And why do we want to do it? Well, first of all, we've got our students and our graduates. So we want to have enterprise and entrepreneurship education for them to enhance their employability. So this is why we're trying to get enterprise throughout the curriculum, and it's underpinned by the guidelines that I talked to you about earlier, and giving students access to business opportunities, business networks, and also incubation if they want it. But then on the other side, we also want to help equip academics with enterprise and entrepreneurship skills. Firstly, because our academics are the ones who will be able to embed it in the curriculum, so that will help us to achieve our goals for students, but also for academics themselves to be able to see the opportunities in their research for impact on wider society, and also opportunities maybe in commercialising their research and creating spin-off companies. So we're trying to improve these aspects as well so that we have more entrepreneurial academics. And a key part of that in terms of getting spin-offs is sort of supporting IP exploitation, how can academics commercialise their ideas. So these are the two areas from individuals who are within the university, our academics and our students, but enterprise and entrepreneurship is also important for the rest of the community outside of the university. So we also want to provide entrepreneurs and business leaders with the skills and knowledge to drive their growth. So for us, our enterprise and entrepreneurship programs are not just about our students, but they're about SMEs in our local region and how can we support them to develop their own businesses and to grow further. So I'll be talking to you about two of our two major growth programs there. And as it says here, one of the really important things about that is bringing these SMEs together, these entrepreneurs together, and they can learn from each other and building these peer learning networks. And finally, we also engage with policymakers. and through this have an impact on what kind of policies they pursue and how they pursue them. So impacting the development of the region in that way, and also the UK. So Carol introduced about one of our research centres, the Enterprise Research Centre. This is a national research centre. It's led by Aston University and the University of Warwick, which is another very prestigious university nearby in our region. And it's part funded by the government and part funded by 7 major banks in the UK. And the aim of this research centre is to research what leads to small business growth, SME growth, and how can we enable that, and also innovation and their productivity. So this pulls together researchers from Aston, but also from various other universities to work on these projects. And the government often comes to this research centre with research projects, questions they want answered, and this research centre provides research to underpin their policies. I think because we've got this research hub, it means that we quite often do get different policymakers coming to us. So, for example, last year, my colleagues, they did a project for the government looking on how can we measure social entrepreneurship. Because the UK government is very interested in promoting social enterprise, but we don't have any good statistics to know what is actually the national level of social enterprise. So they took the basis of the small business survey that we have, that the government does every year, to see what's going on with SMEs in the UK. And they wanted to add in a measure of social entrepreneurship. And our academics, they worked with the government and with representatives from different social enterprise support organisations to develop this measure, which will now be used in future surveys so that the government can better plan its policies for social enterprises. So this is really important because we've got this synergy between the research, between the businesses, and it also helps to inform what are we telling our students. Other aspects, yes, the Small Business Charter, which again is about universities supporting small businesses, and it provides a network of universities and exchanging information on how can we support businesses. And finally, with our research, as I've already said, we help provide data on enterprise and business growth, and Aston is part of the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which is the data that I showed you yesterday for social enterprises. This is this international survey which occurs every year to measure levels of entrepreneurship across the globe in a comparative way. And we're the hub for the English survey of that. So just to kind of explain what goes on at Aston, we've got enterprise and curriculum, we've got startup support for students and graduates, we have these growth programs for businesses, we've got our research and evaluation, and we have many strategic projects which help impact the economy both regionally and nationally. So I'm going to talk to you about these 4 different stages that we have here. First of all, enterprise and entrepreneurship in the curriculum and some of the extracurricular activities, and I'm very briefly talk about that. And then I'm going to spend more time talking to you about our student incubator, the student and graduate startups, and then our growth programs. And why I've got this arrow like this is it shows you how we're kind of going from raising awareness to students starting up, to then businesses that have started up, they've survived, they've got a reasonable business, but then they want to grow. And we've got these 2 different growth programs. And all of this is underpinned and linked into our research and evaluation. So the head of the Enterprise Research Centre, Professor Mark Hart, he is also key in teaching and developing the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programme and also the Aston Programme for Small Business and Growth. So you can see there really is this link and synergy between research, academic research, and our training for SMEs. Just to show you how these different programs vary, so the seen as our student and graduate incubator, and students and graduates from Aston University can come to this if they have some idea. So they don't need to start a business yet. This is just really a program to help them take their idea and put it into action. The Programme for Small Business Growth takes businesses that are at least 1 year old and have 1 full-time employee. That can be an entrepreneur itself, so it can be sole traders. And they have to show that they have potential for growth. It's important as well that these are people who don't have any recent management education. So the idea here is that we're bringing in people from business and teaching them the latest knowledge for management education, which can then help support them grow their businesses. And again, it's the primary owner and the main decision maker, the entrepreneur, who's leading the business that is in all of these programs. Goldman Sachs program is also about growth, but these businesses are a bit more developed than for the Programme for Small Business Growth. They have to be at least 3 years old, and they have to have between 5 and 50 employees, and an annual turnover of £250,000 a year, well, at least in the previous year. So they're more established businesses. So that's just to show you how to those relate. And now I'm going to briefly talk about enterprise and entrepreneurship in the curriculum, and then I'll go back to talking through those schemes and programs we have. So currently we have various modules for enterprise education within our curriculum. At the undergraduate level, in the business school, we have one program which I teach, which is entrepreneurial management, where students have to come up with an idea in teams, develop it, go out and talk to customers and get some feedback about their idea, and then they have to create a crowdfunding pitch at the end to show what their idea is. And it's a crowdfunding simulation, so the students then get to vote on each other's ideas and see that way what kind of feedback they're getting. And they actually do the crowdfunding pitch twice, so they get this opportunity to have feedback twice. The first time is the sales pitch, selling their product to customers, and the next time is a venture capitalist pitch. So they get to understand as well that there are different ways that you have to promote your business to other business people. We also have in the engineering school a first year module which is called Engineering Projects and Entrepreneurship, and this is for our electrical engineers. And they in teams have to develop a product or improve a product, and then they have to think about a business case for it and also a plan for a small batch production. So this really brings them from thinking about the engineering but also to the commercial implications of their design. And at the end of that, they go to, there's a little show, and other businesses and employers are invited to see what the students have done. Another module that we have is called the HYPE module, and it is linking both entrepreneurship and with more emphasis on intellectual property. So then it's about developing a business idea and pitching it, but also it really emphasises understanding IP. And the personal development programme, this is available for all students in the business school at the master's level, and this is taking HYPE and implementing it into our personal development programme that I will talk to you a little bit about in the day. So this is within the curriculum, but as I said, we also have a lot of extracurricular activities, so things that are optional for students to do. To begin with, we have a series of events throughout the year, with workshops, things like how to create winning business ideas, testing your business ideas on a budget, and making social impact. And what we do is we invite entrepreneurs from outside to give these workshops, and now quite often they're ex-graduates, so they're former graduates of Aston who are coming back to teach our students about these things. So for instance, making a social impact was taught by a social entrepreneur who was actually highlighted as one of the top 50 social entrepreneurs in the UK for her business Beat Freaks. And she developed that business at Aston through the BCE programme, and it's gone on to be very successful. So we're able to actually have this group of our graduates coming back and really linking into the university. Other activities we have are hackathons. So we have a variety of hackathons. This year we have what's called Social Storm, and this is our hackathon which is focused on solving sustainable development goals for the UN. this year I think it's about climate change and also building sustainable and resilient and safe cities. So what students do, they come together for 24 hours and they work in teams. And the interesting thing about Social Storm is that they work in teams but with other universities as well, so they're virtual teams. And these universities are across different countries also. And they work together to come up with an idea and pitch it at the end. UniHack's a company in the UK that comes into universities and creates hackathons which are specifically designed for the students of that university. So our startup support, we're really interested in trying to get more engineers involved in enterprise and entrepreneurship education. So the last UniHack we had was themed around the Internet of Things and then coming up with ideas around this theme. We also have competitions. So there's the Aston Enterprise competition where students can submit ideas and their business ideas and pitch them at Aston, and they win for £500 at the end. But there's also a UK-wide Santander's University Entrepreneurship Award, which is a similar idea, but it's a competition across all universities in the UK. And we've had entrants to that who've been quite successful. Then finally, we have our student enterprise societies. So these are run by the students. So I talked to you about Enactus yesterday. We also have one that's called Aston Entrepreneurs, and this brings students who are interested in entrepreneurship, starting their business, and offers networking, workshops, invites people to talk. Then we have another one which is 180 degrees consulting, which is again a bit like Enactus in that it's not just within our university, but it's a network and has organisational support, but it's about developing consulting projects. So students will go out and they'll be consultants for businesses, and I think there's really a focus on sustainability and social businesses. So they'll get a problem and then they go and consult on it and propose a solution. And then Aston Bright Futures is about careers development. So it's more general enterprise entrepreneurship, but it's really about networking, and all different students can come along and think about networking, meeting people from different businesses, and also how to develop your career. So as you can see, we have quite a wide range of extracurricular activities. Now, moving into how do we support people who want to start up businesses, grow their businesses, we have BC, which is for our students and our graduates. It stands for Birmingham Skills for Enterprise and Employability Network. And Aston is not the only member in BC. So this incubator program has been set up within 3-4 other universities in Birmingham. So it was first set up in 2012, and it was using money from, using money from the European Union. So they funded it. And in 2012, we had partnerships with Birmingham City University and the University of Birmingham. So what happens is that students from these different universities, if they have an idea, they can apply. If they get selected, they get invited into the program. And initially, the program, when they do their training, all the students from the different universities will come together for that training. But then they have their individual support over the year, which is taking place within their university. So there's a sort of collaboration between the universities, and then some specific bits which take place within your own individual university. And from 2012 to 2015, there are 130 businesses that were created from this program that lasted for 12 months or more. And this created 38 full-time jobs. Now we're into the second phase of the program, so it started to be reapplied for funding in 2016, and we have funding until 2019. Our partners have changed. We've now got Newman University and University College Birmingham who's added into the program. And the aim is to create 225 new businesses in this period. So what happens is, with BC, it links into the enterprise activities that we do in terms of the extracurricular stuff, hackathons and events and so forth, because these are awareness-raising activities. So BC uses these at Aston to recruit students, say, look, isn't entrepreneurship interesting? If you have an idea, you can come in and apply for our incubator. So in 2012 to 2015, we had 760 participants in these programs. The next stage is the application. So students will send in an application. Most of them will get invited to an interview, to a selection panel, and on the selection panel are both our managers of the incubator, but also external entrepreneurs who come and judge them. And our the acceptance rate is quite high. I think most students get accepted onto the programme. It's not really about selecting. If they think that there's some potential there, the student will be allowed on the programme. And then they move into this incubation stage, where they get access to office space for 12 months. They have support from the project teams. At the beginning, there's a really intensive workshop to help them get going with their business idea. They get networking opportunities throughout the year where other entrepreneurs are invited. Once a year, they have a marketplace where they show their ideas, and that takes place in Birmingham's Innovation Centre. So it's really open to other businesses and the general community. There's small grants available, and also there's mentoring. So from 2012 to 2015, we had 482 participants in that, and there were 7 cohorts along that time period. Normally there's one in September, and then one in April time, and sometimes there's one in the middle. So this just shows you some statistics on who comes, the users we see, who's been part of the programme. And you can see that 58% of them are actually undergraduates who are still at university, but as it's also a graduate scheme, we have 42% of them that are graduates. They have to be graduates within the last 3 years. 59% are male and 41% are female. And we normally see this divide between male and female in entrepreneurship. There generally tends to be less female entrepreneurs throughout most of our statistics. So the first part of BC, when students enter the programme, they have a 5-day intensive boot camp. As they say, it's running in June or September. It's just outside term time, so they don't need to worry about clashes with their classes. And the participants from all 3 universities come together, and they get a variety of workshops. So you can see what here's they've got on the curriculum. Objective setting, action planning, business plans and value propositions, learning really the basics of businesses, financials, what do you need to do, how do you actually need to register your business as well. Then thinking about marketing, lean startup, sales, legal, digital marketing, networking skills. So it's basically a really intensive package that they've got all the basics, which they can then take further and apply throughout the year to grow, to start their business. The incubator space for Aston, so each university has its own incubator space, but Aston we decided, as we're right next to the Science Park for Birmingham, so this is Aston University here, this is Birmingham Science Park, and our incubator is in one of the buildings, Innovation Birmingham. So this is a really great opportunity for our students, because they've got office space around other businesses that are starting, growing, innovating, and it really gives them great opportunities for networking. And there's hot desking arrangements, and they've got printing facilities, and the BC managers are always in that office space. So the students always have access to them and can say, go and ask for support. And I think that's one of the parts that's really important, because then our managers, they manage to build these relationships with the students, which means that they're able to give much better advice and mentoring and really kind of help them along the way. The Science Park's also open 24 hours, so students have access to the space 24 hours, which is useful given that some of them are looking around their studies. So I mentioned that there's mentoring provided as well, and with this mentoring program, it can sometimes last longer than the incubation program. It really depends on the relationship that you build with your mentor. It's approximately 1 hour per month, and the mentors are found through some of our other programs. So some of our local programs, we get mentors from them, like the Goldman Sachs and 10,000 Small Business. We also use university alumni. As now we're in the second cohort of at BC, we're using previous BC students to be mentors as well. And there's also an association, British Bankers Association, that has a mentoring stream. So in the UK, there are other places where you can go and look for mentors from. And I've just got an example here of a mentor-mentee relationship. So the mentor here is Emma Jennings, and she went through the Goldman Sachs program. So she's been through one of our programs, and she's been mentoring our student Asma, who's a pharmacy student, and she's running a food business, Delicious. And so Asma here says, Emma has been invaluable in developing my business plan, and as a citizen to venue, which has excellent catering team, it was a great match. So I think those two, their businesses are similar, they're both working in the catering business, so it really enabled her to get insight from her mentor about how does that business sector work. So what are the outcomes of the business program? Well, obviously we're creating entrepreneurs, and we've had 130 businesses that are created in that period of 2012 to 2015. We also have some serial entrepreneurs, so we have some really quite successful entrepreneurs who go on and found more businesses. Then, on top of that, not necessarily all of the students who are involved in these places, their businesses might not be successful, they might decide it's not for them. But we don't really find that, we don't mind that as an outcome, because they've developed their enterprising skills. So what we find is that actually these students are really highly employable. The employers that interviewed are really interested in what they've done in terms of starting up a business. And it shows lots of attributes that employers are looking for. So even if we don't have success in terms of starting a business, we've got success in enhancing their employability and building their skills. And these are our manager, Karen Keenan of BC, and our enterprise coordinator, Sandra Benjo. And last year they won a national award for being the top enterprise team in higher education in the UK for supporting student businesses. So you can see they're doing a very good job there. And this is just a short case study of a business that we had that was created by students from Aston. So these students, Sam Jones and David Bennett, they studied computer science at Aston. And whilst they're on the computer science program, we have another interesting activity that these students can be involved in. It's basically a consulting company that's run by the students of computer science during the summer break. And there's an academic that supports it, and they get programs, they get clients who come along with problems, and they'll solve them. And they participated in this program, and they really liked it. They really liked the independence they got, the creativity of it, and it made them think, well, actually, maybe we could start our own business. So they came up with an idea, they applied to BC, and they developed Codabate, which is an agile software and app development company which really focuses on the SME sector, because SMEs have problems keeping up with their technology and the expense of most major companies that would do app development and agile software. So they went through the BC program, and afterwards they moved out into offices in the science park. So they stayed there because they really saw the benefits of being in this situation around other innovative businesses. And that was really one of our success cases, because after that, after I think a couple of years, they went on to our program for small business growth. So it shows that there is some kind of links between our students who can start their business in the incubator, and then if they're successful and grow, they can move into our small business growth program. And yeah, as you can see from their quote there, they said being in the science park really helped them convince their clients that they were serious. And they said other things that really helped them from the BC program were learning about kind of marketing themselves, communication, business planning, and so forth. So this makes a nice transition to our next program, which is the program for small business growth. And the aim of this program is to support SMEs to grow. So we want to increase their turnover and help them to create jobs in the Midlands, or in our local regions, so helping the local economic development. This is also part funded by the European Union. And it started last year in January, and it goes on until 2018. And the aim is to cover So in the program too, about 125 SMEs and social entrepreneurs will take part across 5 cohorts. So just to remind you, they have to be 1 year old, they have to have 1 full-time employee, which can be the owner of the entrepreneur itself. They have to have potential for growth, and they have to be based in our local region because it's about supporting local economic development. What happens is that we create cohorts of around 25 to 30 businesses, and there's an attempt to create a mix of businesses. So probably around 25% of those will be sole traders, where it's just the entrepreneur and their business. But then the others will be larger businesses, and there's a variety of sectors. It's also, there's social enterprises and commercial enterprises, so it's a real mix. But then within that cohort, what happens is that the entrepreneurs get split up into smaller teams of 5 or 6 individuals, and they work with these individuals throughout the program. The idea of this is that this creates greater trust between them, so that each entrepreneur feels more comfortable with talking about all aspects of their business with the knowledge that it's not going to go any further. So this really helps facilitate this peer learning. And peer learning is one of the core features of all our programs, and where the entrepreneurs really do take a lot away. And then they have these networks which survive afterwards. So they'll go and call up, people in the network after they finish the program and get that support. So what happens is they have a series of workshops over 6 months, and over those 6 months they get about 100 hours face to face. And these are taught, they're led by our Director of the Centre of Growth for the White House, but also Professor Mark Hart, our entrepreneurship professor. He's also very active in teaching these programs too. And we bring in other faculty experts for their specialisms in different areas. So you can see the curriculum here, introducing your network, growth and goals, opportunity innovation, finance for business leader, leadership, marketing, talking about culture and people, and how to actually help develop your employees as well, operations and processes, how can you apply for external financing, because this could be a big block for businesses' growth. And then presenting your growth strategy at the end. So at the end of this process, what the businesses come up with, the entrepreneurs come up with, is a growth strategy for their business, which then they can apply. So the program is a bit like an MBA, but it's tailored specifically for SMEs, and it's really considering SME case studies, and also how can they apply this immediately to their own business. Oh, and the mentoring, of course. There's always mentoring in these programs. So here's some quotes from some of the businesses that have gone through it. The first one at the top is Lewis Deli. So it's a small business in Birmingham, which is a neighbourhood deli, and he wanted to expand his business. And one of the things that he said about the programme, why it was really useful for him, was that the time scale over a few months really helped him fit it into his busy life. As an entrepreneur, there's many claims on your time, so you really need to think when designing these things, how can we do it in a way that it's not going to be too much of a burden for them? So he said it was clearly designed to fit around the day-to-day operation of a one-man business with customers to feed. Next, we have Citizen Click here, and this is a business that is to support the social media strategies for social enterprises. Again, the issue here is that social enterprises generally are quite small and have limited resources. So it's problematic for them to access, other support organisations. So they're a social enterprise in themselves, and that they're supporting social enterprises. So much of their profits put back into Citizen Click business. And he says that we were doing good business before, but now we are doing great business. We managed to secure finance for new equipment services, which I was reluctant to do before the course. This has helped to accommodate new staff, which I now have the skills to manage and recruit. And this is one of the areas that really these programs help, because many entrepreneurs don't necessarily come in from a business background, having studied business, and there are so many different skills that they have to learn along the way. particularly for growing their businesses. So really developing these skills to recruit new staff, but also helping them understand what the different finance options are there and available and what are the pros and cons of them to really help them build their growth strategy. Finally, we have Green Revolutions, which is a social enterprise, and their aim is to reduce car journeys. So to try and reduce our carbon footprint by encouraging less car usage and also more bicycle usage. So they have a pay-to-go car club and a cycle club. And the results have actually said that the program is invaluable as I have developed my skills and knowledge and increased insight into my business to lead Green Revolutions into a new phase of growth. Drive success through new business, find investment, and grasp financial control to enable keen focus to build on strategies for sustainable growth. So these are a couple of case studies from the small business growth program. Now we move on to the 10,000 Small Business Program from Goldman Sachs. And this is a national program which has been established by Goldman Sachs as part of their corporate social responsibility. And the emphasis is to help businesses scale their enterprises, their ventures. It's delivered not just by Aston but by 4 other business schools. So we do it in partnership with Sage Business School at the University of Oxford, with Leeds Business School and Manchester Metropolitan Business School. The first phase of the project from 2010 to 2015, it was organised on a regional basis. So entrepreneurs would come together from a particular region and they would form a cohort. So Aston was responsible for the West Midlands region and had cohorts of businesses from our local region. In this period, 2010 to 2015, there were 935 entrepreneurs who were trained. The aim now is to, from the new program 2016 plus, to train even more, so train another 1,000 by 2020. The program shifted slightly, and now it's no longer regionally based, but it's nationally based. So our cohorts are from all different parts of the country, and the teaching, the workshops will occur in different locations across the country. So businesses will do workshops in Birmingham, in Oxford, in Manchester. And I think the reason for this shift is really so that different regions can learn from each other as well. It gives a bit more heterogeneity to the people who are involved. So, as it says, there are national cohorts of 160 each time, but they're split into smaller groups again, these 30 to 35, because this really enables the bonds of friendship and trust to be built, which facilitate peer learning. And they have 3 residential sessions and then 7 online weeks over the 4-month process. We've gone over what are the criteria for joining. They have to be at least 3 years old. They have to have between 5 and 50 employees, at least £250,000 turnover in the last year, and no recent management education. They should be the main decision maker. If we look at who actually is on these programs, this is the data from 2010 to 2015. We find that on average businesses have 21 employees. So that gives you an idea about the size. They're not micro businesses anymore, they've moved into the small business category. And 37% of them actually don't have any university degree level education. So this is really quite a new experience for them. And on average they have a turnover of £1.2 million per year. You can see that from a wide variety of sectors, 17% from manufacturing, 17% from professional, scientific and technical, 16% in information and communication, 12% administrative and supportive services, 9% wholesale and retail trade, and then 29% other activities. So there's a broad range of sectors that are represented there. When we look at what the curriculum is, this shows you the map of the different modules, and you can see there's a combination of starting online, but then moving to the face-to-face. And the face-to-face is really important because this is where you're building these networks and where you can really get that peer learning. So the online allows for flexibility, but it's really important that we have these face-to-face sessions so they can build their relationships. So the topics are quite similar to the small business growth program in terms of talking about growth and opportunity, strategies for finance and sales, financial models, leadership culture, people processes, developing the market, cash and funding, strategic review, and a growth plan again at the end. So they are similar, but these businesses are at a different level of development. So they're further developed, so they're a bit more complex. So they're tailored to the different sizes of businesses that we have. And here is research on the results. So what do these businesses say they have gained from being on the programme? This is done with a survey afterwards, and 93% of them say that they're more confident at managing growth. 92% of them are actually introducing new processes. 84% are using financial data to make decisions, so they're using it more, they're having more informed decisions, and 84% have sourced new suppliers. And in terms of financing, we see that graduates of the programs are 4 times more likely to actually seek financing than compared to other small businesses. We also see that they're more likely to be innovating, with 69% of them producing new products and services within 3 years after graduating. They also provide more training opportunities to their staff, 77% of them do that. And they're 2 times likely to be exporting their products or services than before the programme. So we can see that they see themselves that there's a change in their behaviour. And we see that participants of the programme, after the programme, they see that there's employment growth of 31% per year, the year after the programme, and 81% per year of revenue growth. Now, one of the issues with these figures is that we're just looking at figures from firms that have been through the programme, but it might not actually be the effect of the programme that we're seeing here. It could be that the Goldman Sachs programme has just selected really excellent businesses that are going to grow anyway. And this is always the problem with programmes and evaluating them, knowing would these outcomes have occurred in any case without the support. But because our programmes are developed and supported by researchers, and we have a nice lot of data from the Goldman Sachs programme, Professor Mark Hart did a rigorous evaluation study where he compared the growth of the firms that had been in the programme to very similar firms that hadn't been through the programme. So this gives you sort of like an experiment in terms of what we call a quasi-experiment. It's not quite an experiment because obviously you haven't decided who's getting the treatment, going to co and who isn't, but you're trying to find one group that's as similar as possible to those that have been through it. So you can see, are those outcomes actually due to the programme or not? And from this research, we find that the programme actually boosts growth 17% and employment growth and revenue growth by 19%. So you can see those numbers are smaller than the ones above, so obviously there is a selection effect, but also we can see that there is a considerable impact of the programme on the growth of these businesses. Finally, I've got a video to show you about the experiences of the individuals on the programme.
Being a small business owner in the UK is tough.
It's a very lonely place, being an owner of a business, particularly a growing business.
You're the leader in the business. You don't often get the time to step back and reflect, but it's important.
Any business can grow, provided you're willing to adapt and change your ideas.
How can a robot business and a cleaning business and a haulage business and a restaurant have similar problems?
All of the other people in the room were facing exactly the same challenges as myself, and that in itself was just a really nice feeling.
The Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programme is half a day a week over a 4-week period. For me, it was an opportunity to sit down and look at fundamentals of a business.
Yes, you've got world-class tutors there, and yes, you've got fantastic guest speakers from all walks of life, but it was the peer-to-peer learning. that put everything into context.
Finance and accounts.
General better HR practice.
Mitigating risk.
Sales and marketing.
What was the plan?
You can form a growth plan during the programme and you can go away and start applying it and making a massive impact to the business.
The business grew because I took the time out of the business to think about it, learn and come back with new ideas, new skills and transfer them to my colleagues.
I think without the 10,000 Small Businesses programme, I'd still be bogged down in the day-to-day running of the business rather than looking at how to make the business better and bigger.
The programme really does not end after 12 modules. In fact, that's when it all starts.
You've now got a network of other businesses who are of the same mindset as you. It's like a quality mark.
This network is absolutely fantastic. It means that what you've learnt already can be developed upon.
It's proved to be a very valuable trading fraternity.
We've shopped around, but it's not that we're buying directly into the online network, but they're providing me the best service, I have trust, I have good price, and I have longevity.
I think Goldman Sachs have formulated a programme mixing together social enterprise with commercial businesses. We can learn from each other.
We had a need to increase our capacity for our work. We now work with a social enterprise. We employ 10 people who've never had a job before, and that is a heck of a good feeling.
Small businesses are at the heart of the community, and therefore, as we grow, there are community benefits as well.
Growth in small enterprises is really important for the UK economy.
Since the programme, we've gained some really prestigious accounts.
The growth that we've experienced has been phenomenal. We've been lucky enough to achieve more than 100% year on year.
We've increased from 19 staff 15 months ago to 29 staff as we are today.
We go from a 40-colour restaurant to a 65-colour restaurant.
Instead of taking 29 minutes to process an order, it now takes us less than 2 minutes.
Since 10,000 Small Businesses, we've grown already by over 30%. Over the next 2 years, we will grow again and double in size. You know, that growth wouldn't have come without the help that we had from the programme.
So you can see from the video the impact that it has on businesses, but also one of the things they emphasise really is this networking opportunity, the peers that they've learned from, but how that network continues afterwards. And at Aston, we also want to harness that network. So when the programs are designed, when there are new cohorts, each time that it's designed, there are different networking opportunities to invite old members back into talk to new ones and come to different kind of presentations or workshops so that we keep that network going. And also, as you saw with the BC, we use people from the Goldman Sachs program to act as mentors. Quite often we use them as case studies in our teaching as well. We get them to come into class and talk to students about their businesses. So there's lots of ways that we benefit as well as a university from these connections, and that we want to keep on growing and keeping these businesses and these individuals within our university network. So just to summarise everything, sum up our programs, the fundamentals across these startup and growth programs have some similarities between all of them, all the different stages. The first one really is peer learning, and I can't emphasise enough the importance of peer learning. I think also with the students incubator we've seen, quite often students come in and they don't realise the importance of peer learning. They don't see that that's going to be important to them or that they're going to learn very much from other people. But by the end of it, they do see that that's one of the major advantages of being there, because you're with other individuals who are going through the same process. And it's not just about learning what are the techniques and skills and strategies you can use to improve your business, but it also provides that emotional support, because starting a business and developing it can be quite an emotional journey. And then people going through the same thing. In the video we just saw, one of the entrepreneurs said it can be very lonely when you're leading your business. And this gives them a network of people who are going through the same things. There's also that emotional and social support. All of these programs use expertise from Aston, so we use our academics to teach in the areas where they have their specialism, and they're tailored for the startups and the SMEs. So So we take a lot of the stuff that we might apply in our teaching, and then think, okay, what are the relevant bits for these SMEs? So there is again a lot of coherence between what we're doing in terms of teaching and our research, and then these programs here. Mentoring is key in creating these mentoring relationships and thinking about who good mentor-mentee matches. That's very important, so that businesses, entrepreneurs, again, get a sounding board so that they have someone to discuss their ideas with who can give them different perspectives. Perspectives, again, are really important here. There's lots of voices. So when designing these, it's not just about academic staff. We bring in everyone we can. So we bring in other entrepreneurs, we bring in industry experts, we bring in investors. So the businesses and entrepreneurs get so many different perspectives that they can understand how to fit into the ecosystem in Birmingham, and also maybe get their eyes opened to different ideas and different approaches. So as I say, we're really linked into our local ecosystem. We've got these relationships developed with businesses, and through having these programs, we get more integrated into that local ecosystem. Because each time we have these programs, then there are people who want to do stuff for Astor. You know, they're generally very keen to come back and support us. And some of them also want to come and do more learning. So some of the people who've been on the small business program and Goldman Sachs, they get really interested in the academic side of things and come back for an executive MBA to have a bit more depth. We need to be linked into the ecosystem to provide these, but it also helps us to develop these links. Also, as you can see with the BC program and with Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, we work in collaboration with other universities. This gives us more resources, different businesses and entrepreneurs, and it generally enhances the program having these collaborations. And finally, what I'd like to emphasise as well is that these really are integrated with research. So the people who are designing these programs, they are involved in research. Not everyone who's teaching the program is a researcher, and our Centre for Small Business Growth has people who specifically focus on SME support who aren't researchers, but all of them have some research element written into them. And they also provide researchers with data so that we can then understand, what's going on with business growth, and we learn from that too. So again, we've got these loops of linking into each other. So these are our programs. These are kind of the fundamentals that we have. We're currently developing other sorts of programs for more specific angles, specific sectors. So we're quite open to using the expertise that we have here. And when we see an opportunity where maybe it's a certain sector that needs help, a certain type of business, we can then develop other programs as well, using these expertise that we've developed. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and any questions as well. Are there any questions about any of our programs?
Yes, so I can see there's a wide range of enterprises to Goldman Sachs covering as no. But I would like to know, what about the small businesses that students are creating, startup?
Yes.
What's the variety of these enterprises?
There's a big variety in those too. It really depends on the students' ideas. So what students come with to us, to the incubator is what then ends up being developed. So within this team also we do see a wide variety of ideas. I would say though that we do tend to have more students from perhaps the business school than others, and this is something that we're trying to work on, and how can we encourage other parts of the university, other types of students to think about entrepreneurship. So that's an issue that we're trying to deal with at the moment. One of the things as well is, say for instance, language and social sciences students, they tend to have a more negative attitude to entrepreneurship, yet many of them might actually be starting their own businesses. So if you're doing languages, you might start your own translation business or something like that. And there's ways that they can also be enterprising their activities, their subjects. So we accept all types of businesses, but yes, we do tend to have more for the business school than other areas.
Could you give us an example of which of those is the most successful?
The most successful? Well, off the top of my head, I can't remember all the figures. Beat Freaks is a social enterprise which was started by a student at Aston. She was in business school, and it's a social enterprise which is based on helping young people from deprived backgrounds kind of build skills and so forth. And what their business model is that they link companies who are really interested in marketing to these populations. So they give them insight into whatever youth of today interested in, and through that they manage to create activities which kind of develop skills for these young people. And that's grown quite substantially. I can't remember how many people it employs, but it has done quite a lot over Birmingham over the last, I think it's been around 5 years now. And she was recognised, and Lisa Hadina was recognised as one of the top 15 social entrepreneurs in the UK, social entrepreneurs in the UK. So that's a real success story. We have another, I can't remember his name, he started a business which actually really supports other businesses. So he's very successful in providing sort of a structure to support other small startups. And he's involved in he actually comes back into the university, he's very involved in the university, in our enterprise working groups, the committee. So we have a committee at the university level which has an oversight over all of the different activities we have to link to enterprise. And we bring him on as an advisor to that, and he's been pretty successful. I think he's supported about 10 other small businesses, startups, and is continuing to do so. But I can get you more examples if I get in touch with my colleague Carolyn. She obviously has the day-to-day relationships with them.
Hi. I have a question about the incubation program. It always lasts 12 months. And what kind of businesses you are incubating right now?
What kind of businesses are we incubating right now? Well, I don't know what the latest cohort is. I'm trying to think.
I mean, like, it don't work. Yeah, it's working. It's a traditional business or technological business?
Some of them, so they're really, you mean a student incubator? Yeah, it's a real range of businesses. So we'll have some really traditional businesses, such as someone who's starting a photography business, someone who's maybe starting a cake company. We have businesses like that, and then we have innovative businesses as well. So we have one student who's developing a business to sell glasses online. So there's already this model in the US and Canada, but we don't really have it very much in the UK. So he's been developing the glasses and then the processes to sell that online. We have another business that was last year's cohort. They were developing a sort of online temping agency, so that they were taking students who need part-time jobs and putting them on there to be hired for businesses who needed short-term temps that would work online, with virtual personal assistants and things like that. So that was quite innovative. We have another business that was last year's cohort as well, which was quite innovative, which was about really getting businesses to link into schools. So the entrepreneur, he used our links that we have at Aston with businesses, and the sort of things that we do for students in terms of linking businesses, but then brought that to the school level with lots of video links and video conferences, and that's something that's quite innovative for schools, and that's been pretty successful. So there's the whole range. There's a range of not very innovative, but sort of lifestyle maybe businesses to quite innovative ones as well.
And how many businesses you can incubate at the same time?
I think the cohorts, what's the cohort size? I know for all the universities, they have about 50 students, so that's between 3 universities. For each cohort, there's 50 students. I think at Aston we have about 20 in each cohort. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, well, I have a question, and this is related to innovation. The Millennium Core. Okay, this is something related to innovation. According to the Millennium Core Skills, students have to develop communication, problem solving, and creative thinking, and teamwork. So, the last week we hosted an event at Google Mexico, in Mexico City, related to transformative innovation policy. And my question, and something that I want to know from your perspective, the relationship between innovation and entrepreneurship, and how this is important to develop and to join the academia, the government, and the business sector.
And what we know from the research is that we want to be developing innovative enterprises because those are the ones that are going to be having the biggest impact on growth in our society. So we really want to be encouraging it. And that is an issue in that all entrepreneurship is not necessarily innovative. Many startups, if you just look at startup numbers, they are just replicating other business models. Quite a lot of them are lifestyle businesses. So we do really need to encourage innovation. And I think this is one of the things that we're trying to build at Aston, because as we saw with your question as well about what kind of businesses do we incubate all of them because we don't have a huge pipeline of innovative businesses. And this is something we're trying to develop. So this is something why we want to have more enterprise education within the curriculum, because then we hope that we'll inspire students from maybe engineering and computer science who have more access to that technology, and those students tend to be the ones that come with more innovative products and services than necessarily our business students. So I think the innovation angle is really important, and it's something that we're trying to develop, but it's hard. Yeah, and I think things like, showing things like your event that you're talking about, linking into companies is a way to really promote that and show to students, how can you do it. I think entrepreneurship and just teaching the entrepreneurial mindset in general should lead us to have more innovative students, because it gives them, it develops those skills to take the risks. Because being innovative is really, you're going out on your own, you're doing something new, you're doing something different, you're taking a risk, you're having to deal with uncertainty. So if we get more students with those skills and feel like, okay, it's okay if I go out there and I fail, because that doesn't mean I'm a failure, then we should get more individuals being willing to innovate and think about ideas. I think also we see with entrepreneurship education that you really can develop creativity in individuals. Of course there's some kind of baseline creativity, some people are more creative than others, but there's many methods that we can use to enable people to enhance their creativity. And if we do that, we should also hopefully end up with more innovative students and more innovative enterprises. Yeah, that's a really good question.
So,
wait a second for the microphone.
Sorry, can you tell me more about your collaboration with another universities?
With other universities?
The scope of that collaboration.
The scope of that collaboration. Well, with our local universities, with the theme project, the student incubator, the reason why we set up the incubator, Aston wanted an incubator, and that there was interest from the local government and the EU in having a student incubator was that the West Midlands was quite hit by the financial crisis in 2009. And one of the things about the UK is that the economy is very much dependent on London. So what we see in the West Midlands is lots of graduates move to London to pursue jobs. So this was a cooperation between these universities because we're all facing a similar problem, and it's about developing the region. And we have synergies in that our students do different things. So for instance, Birmingham City University, they have many sort of design students, college students, it's very practical subjects which we don't have so much. So there are different, but we're all aiming at the same thing, which is developing our region, developing our students. So by coming together, it enables us to apply for funding like the RDF and get a bigger project, which can have bigger impact, and also we can learn from each other. But I think it really depends on the project. I think we're very open to collaboration. It really depends on what funding streams come along and how do we fit with other universities. But it's something that we do a lot of, and I think it is encouraged by the funding that we have too.
Would you recall any reasons why students in languages don't look at entrepreneurship a negative way?
Well, I think they're put off by business. Like a lot of them, they're not. I'm actually doing a research project at the moment to understand what the students think of when they hear enterprise and entrepreneurship. But I know from talking to colleagues who work with the language and social science students, and also our career support who work specifically with them, they're not very motivated by money. And I think they see that entrepreneurship and commerce is all about money, and that's not what interests them. Lots of them at Aston, they want to work for the health service, they want to work for the public sector. They're interested in kind of helping people, and they don't see enterprise as a way to do that. And if you think about some of the stereotypical images we have of enterprise and entrepreneurship in the media, I don't know what it's like here, but it does seem to be very profit-oriented. Okay, let's grow and think about our profits. So there are some negative stereotypes that we're working against. But I will hopefully will have a better answer for you in the future.
Have you incubated any businesses related to translating, and have they been successful?
To my knowledge, no, but I don't know every business that's been there. We really don't have that many language and social science students who are participating.
And is the university located in London?
It's located in Birmingham, which is in the centre of the country. Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.